Today, we continue to look at the forward lines as the Four Nations break continues on.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, we are going to take a look at the two new guys, as well as dive into the strengths and weaknesses overall of the Flames forward group. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And before we dive into all of this, can we talk about the Four Nations tournament real quick? Obviously, not a great outcome for Canada on Saturday. Still time to be, thrown into the final on today against, they're in Boston. So that'll be fun. But what an exciting time. It's a lot more intense than I expected. And I think it was a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting non-competitive hockey, but I don't know how I'm supposed to go back to watching non-overly competitive hockey. So we'll see if this injects something into any of the team's lineups. But let's talk about Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. These two were obviously acquired earlier this month, and it was a big trade. Jacob Pelletier and Andrei Kuzmenko were shipped over to Philadelphia in exchange for Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. And, I don't want to say they've, I think that they have been adjusting well for the limited time that they've had to build chemistry with their line mates. I think that this is going to be a trade that does pay off pretty well for the Flames. I think that this is going to be something that we look back on like 10 years from now when Craig Conroy isn't the Flames general manager anymore, and we say, wow, that trade is something that sparked something within the organization, or, we'll look at the trade tree and see what happens there. But I like this a lot, and I think that the locker room likes it a lot, and I didn't really see anyone complaining about the trade because, obviously it stinks to lose two great locker room guys, but what Frostby brings to the ice is just as important. So Morgan Frost has 2 goals so far, and I'm very excited to see how he does. He has greatly needed the change of scenery. His name was one that came up every single time there was a trade rumor, whether it was, the off season, the trade deadline, or the Flyers were potentially in the mix. He was due for a change of scenery, and I hope that this really works out for him. He is a good center, and we know the Flames are desperate for center depth, so I'm excited just to have an established NHL player as a center. Obviously not a knock to, like Connor Zary or like Rory Currens. I just think that right now the Flames do need some stability there, especially if they're trying to really push themselves through this final drive, home stretch of the season, and hopefully make the playoffs. But right now, Joel Farabee has 1 goal. I am not concerned. I do not think there's a need to be concerned. Like I said, there's been limited time. There has not been a ton of time to build chemistry with your line mates and your teammates, and it doesn't necessarily help that your lines are always changing, but I like Joel Farabee. I think both Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee bring a lot to special teams as well. There's plenty of room to grow and just get better. I don't think that this is a trade that stinks. I think that this was a smart investment by the Flames organization. And, we're going to see how things go this final stretch of the season. I'm very concerned for this upcoming road trip when they get back from Four Nations. I'll do an episode in depth about that. But right now, I think it is very exciting to see the Flames trading for well-established NHL players that they're come in and make an immediate impact. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Both of them, I mean, truly, they are a bonded pair. Both of them were in Calgary doing an autograph event, and they're everywhere together, and I think that's pretty cool. It's good. I think that that'll help in their adjustment period as well, because they'll have someone that they are familiar with rather than coming in completely blind and not really knowing anyone and having to adjust to being like the new kid in the class. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the Flames power play and special teams and kind of the strengths and weaknesses that we're seeing within the Flames group. And I do have some concerns for how this back half of the season goes coming up here next on Locked On Flames. Well, if you are into sports betting, you need to get in touch with FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live plays or live bets into a same game parlay. I enjoy doing the same game parlays. I think that it makes the game a lot more fun and enjoyable. Like when the Flames typically play, Matt Coronato 3+ shots on goal on goal, Jonathan Huberdeau anytime goal, and typically the over. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames and making Locked On Flames part of your day. I greatly appreciate it. It's been just about 5 years hosting this show, and I feel like so much has changed, but also so much has stayed the same within the Flames organization. So let's talk about some strengths of not just Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, but the forward group as a whole. This comes back to special teams. The Flames power play. We used to beg and pray for times like this. 15th overall power play, 22.3%. I will take. Do I want it to be better? Yes, of course I do. Who wouldn't want to be a top 10, top 5 power play? But for what the Flames are working with and the personnel that they have, I'll take it. It's not just about settling for mediocrity. It's about, acknowledging what they're working with and what they're really working against, because they have not had a sharpshooter on their team. They have not had a true finisher. And, with Connor Zary being out, obviously that's impacted as well. But, the fact that Jonathan Huberdeau leads the team with power play goals is bananas to me. If you told me this back in like before opening night, I would say you are a liar. And that Jonathan Huberdeau has more than 20 goals. If you told me that, I would say you are straight up lying to me and you're just not you're pranking me. And I think with the Flames adjusting and kind of figuring out their game this year, they have been fine. It's the power play is better than what it had been. I'm not watching it through my fingers like it's a horror movie anymore. The penalty kill is kind of a different story, but just the fact that I don't feel sick when the Flames have a man advantage, I think that that's really a bonus. I will say, I think that they have been able to adjust on the fly. That is very big. That's big for any team, but especially a team that, again, they don't have that certified, that bona fide superstar. Jonathan Huberdeau used to be, but now, maybe we're seeing a resurgence of Florida Jonathan Huberdeau. Maybe he has come back, but unlikely. And we all knew this at the time of the trade. But I am just very impressed with the ability to adjust. I would love to see a little bit more consistency in terms of the line combinations, but that's not something that their forwards necessarily have control over. That is Ryan Huska, and there are many head scratching moments there. I think that for me, I want to see when they come back from break, I want to see consistent lines. I'm assuming Connor Zary and Kevin Ball will be back shortly into this break, or shortly when they come back from this break. So I want to see that. I want to see, obviously, where things kind of go. I want to see more from Blake Coleman and Igor Sharangovich. I want to see more of what Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost can do. What I would love to see, truly, is Matt Coronato on that top line. Do not move him unless you absolutely need to. I want to see him, Huberdeau, and Kadri working together and building that chemistry, building, off of each other, because that right there could be an incredible line. Matt Coronato, fantastic shot. I love to see that release. It is crisp, it is clean, and what the Flames need. Nazem Kadri, great center for anyone to play with, but especially a younger player like Coronato, and also a player like Jonathan Huberdeau, who really has been down up until this season. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. And obviously, with an uptick in Huberdeau's offense, him being on a line with those two players is huge. And it's something I want to see more of. And for me, I think that it's not just about the top line success. We also need to see Ryan Huska stop playing Michael Backlund as if he is a 23-year-old superstar. I don't know why he's leading time on ice. I would love to just pick Huska's brain. I wouldn't, I would sign an NDA saying nothing leaves this conversation. But then maybe I could start making sense of some of his decisions, because I'm just genuinely confused at some calls. But this team is better. Let me rewind. This team is performing better than people expected, and I think that's great. We know this team does not necessarily have the makings of a Stanley Cup championship team, other than a roster and great goaltending. You are lacking some of those key foundational pieces, but You are making do with what you have, and you're doing a fine job. Needs to be better, but this is much further ahead than I expected year one into the rebuild, retool, transitional period. I like what we're seeing. I think that this team is heading in the right direction. Rome was not built in a day, the same way that Scotia Place isn't built in a day. The team you see on opening night in that brand new building is going to be years ahead of the team you're currently seeing. Hard work will have paid off. And I will stand on that and I will die on that hill. I think that the hard work and lumps that they have taken and are taking and will continue to take will lead up to a great amount of success when that new building is, like, by the time, like, that is the timeline that I'm working with in my brain. I think it'll be great. But coming up next, we're going to talk about the weaknesses, because Lord knows there are still plenty of holes to fill with the Calgary Flames. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote. Can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer a one-size-fits-all policy, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Select Quote. They shop, you save. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. Where things start to break down for me are the glaring weaknesses of this roster. The roster is not constructed to win a championship at this very moment. This roster does not have enough speed. The defense, which we're going to talk more about later this week, the defense is scary. And not because it's like scary good, but because it's just scary. They're bad. Not everyone, but just the way that they've performed recently has just been a nightmare. But the Flames are missing a lot. Where is the speed? You cannot win in today's game without the speed. This game just keeps getting faster and faster. And sometimes I look at the Flames and it looks like they are trying to skate through molasses. Not all of them, not all the time, but there are just some moments where it's like they don't have the speed or the momentum to get them going and to like come into a rush and generate offense or defense or whatever, because they don't have the speed, and the energy is sometimes lacking. That is safe to say. I think we see that a lot. There isn't always a, what's the term I'm looking for? there isn't always that sense of urgency behind them, I would say. I think we have seen it a lot where, they'll come out and play a bad 20 minutes and then they'll come back in the second period and kind of bounce back. But then there's sometimes where they'll play a good first and second period. They have a 2-3 goal lead and then they take their foot off the gas in the third, and it's just like you're skating on thin ice because either you're going into overtime and winning in overtime or you're losing. Like the game against the Kraken when you were down 2-0 and halfway through the third period they tied it up and then won in overtime, and that's going to happen occasionally. It's natural. But the way the Flames play, it happens a lot. And I think of the game against the Avalanche where Jonathan Huberdeau scored first and it felt good. It was like, okay, wow, we're off to a good start. But then it just collapsed. And for me, what this again signifies, as well as just looking at this team's roster, you don't have a game breaker. Connor Zary and Matt Coronato are as close to that as you're getting at this very moment. Further along in their development, could they be the game breaker? Yes, of course. I am not writing that off. But at this very given moment, you don't have someone that will consistently go out there and score. You don't have a Matthew Tkachuk that comes in with the clutch goals. You don't have Johnny anymore. Those were huge gaps and shoes to fill. I did not expect for us to be 3 years removed from the trade and still looking for those qualities, but there's a lot of things have happened. So you can't necessarily write it off. But I do think that Matt Coronato and Connor Zary have shown signs of getting to that tier. I'm not saying they're going to play as great as those two, but they're going to, when they're out on the ice in the third period and you're down 2-1, okay, you have a good feeling that it's going to happen. Sometimes I feel like with this team right now, you're looking at them and I don't know, Tyson Barrie will tie it up in the third period. Not really, but you don't necessarily have that game breaker. You don't have a consistent scorer in those situations, and you need that. Once you find that, you will be light years ahead of yourself, and I think you'll be in a much better position. Speaking of a better position, this is more, I guess, defensive related, but obviously the forwards are still out there, and that would be the penalty kill. Ranked 28th overall. And I understand that, not everyone is going to have a great penalty kill, but we knew this year would be horrible for the Flames in terms of the penalty kill. You lost Chris Tanev and you lost Noah Hanifin. You lost Nikita Zadorov. You lost Mangiapane even. You lost players that did make a difference. And again, it's more defensive than there's just a lot of forwards that don't necessarily have that defensive responsibility and capability, and that is what it is. But with the Flames, you have just repetitive skill sets over and over, and that's why you don't have the Blake Coleman being on the second line makes no sense to me. No sense to me at this point in his career. Could we see a resurgence? Yeah, of course, but he's coming off of a career year. He's 33 years old. I feel like that Backlund and Coleman line should be the third line. Maybe the lineups will change when Zary comes back, but this is crucial time and crucial points, and I don't see the need for two 30-plus-year-old players to be out on the ice for 20 minutes a night when they're not contributing. And it's frustrating because obviously you don't want your captain to be, kind of hung out to dry and like lead him out to pasture, but it's not, it just doesn't make sense from a roster construction sort of deal. I don't know. I don't know what Ryan Huska thinks. I don't know what he envisions for his rosters, but it feels very counterproductive to have that. And Backlund is pretty solid defensively, but this year has been a big regression. And I just want to see the Flames make smarter roster decisions this offseason. We'll see. We'll see how things go because I don't know. I want to see more Rory Currens. I want to see more of Matt Coronato on that top line. I want to see the lines staying consistent unless you absolutely need to change them. Allow these players to build chemistry. That will go a very long way. But that'll do it for me on today's edition of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. There is about 1.5 feet of snow outside, so I have to go clean that off and shovel. So enjoy your days. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. I'll see you later.